what was it like on the set of Little House on the Prairie? The actress who played Michael Landon's wife says it wasn't as wholesome as it seemed.
So he wasn't exactly like his image, to put it lightly.
Something small turned into a giant moment for television. A quiet town on a studio lot became a scene many people still talk about. The set looked like a real place to families who watched it. The town's closing changed the show and had an impact on the actors. What people saw on screen left a mark on them.
Really, really disgusting stuff. He started to tell these filthy jokes about the female anatomy while we sat there, and it was surrounded by men laughing at these jokes. That was over the line.
But to truly understand why this one shocking scene could take the show off air, we first need to go back to where it all began, because the seeds of that moment were planted long before. Could the beginning of Little House on the Prairie hold the key to its most explosive ending? How the show started. Little House on the Prairie began as a series of books by Laura Ingalls Wilder. The books described life in the late 1800s for the Ingalls family. The main family included Charles Ingalls, Caroline Ingalls, and their daughter, Laura. Michael Landon read the books and saw a chance to bring them to television. He adapted the stories and changed the show with values and a home setting. Michael Landon took the role of Charles Ingalls on screen. He also stepped behind the camera to produce and direct many episodes for the series. His work gave him a strong voice in how the show looked and how the stories moved forward. Producers selected actors who fit the image of the town. Melissa Gilbert played Laura Ingalls. Karen Grassel played Caroline Ingalls. Victor French played several roles connected to the town, including the friend and neighbor, Mr. Edwards. Richard Bull played the steady store owner Nels Olson. Allison Arngrim played Nellie Olson, a young woman who caused trouble and later grew into new roles. The casting gave the show a family feel that viewers could trust for years. The stories focused on daily life, town events, work on the farm, school, and neighbors. Writers used small conflicts that viewers could follow easily. Each episode held a problem and then a return to life. The tone remained gentle for most seasons. Family moments often led the story. The show included scenes in the town, in the Ingalls home, at school, and in the market. The pace allowed actors to grow into their roles. The audience felt as though they connected with the actors. Michael Landon used his creative power to direct many episodes. As a producer, he chose scripts and made decisions about story direction. He also helped manage budgets and the visual look of Walnut Grove. The production designed the set for Walnut Grove carefully. The crew built houses, a church, a school, and a street with shops. The film crew turned that site into a place people would see as a real town. The set became a second home for the cast because they used it for years on location. Laura Ingalls Wilder wrote the books from her memories of her life on the prairie. Her daughter, Rose Wilder Lane, helped edit the books for readers. The books showed small events such as harvests, winter storms, and school days. The television scripts used those moments as a base. Writers selected scenes that would work on screen and then added dialogue and action for filming. The writers and the cast kept the stories clear and easy to follow for family viewers. The series also faced changes as time passed. Some characters left and returned. New guest actors were brought in. The crew often worked long days to get the right light for an outdoor shot. Child actors had set tutors so they could study between scenes and keep up with their schoolwork. The production required careful planning to match seasons and to show the town in different weather. Many crews and extras helped build the life of Walnut Grove and kept the place suitable for viewers. But what if I told you that the Walnut Grove millions of viewers believed was real, never truly existed at all? How did the crew create an entire town that fooled audiences into thinking they were looking at the real frontier? Walnut Grove and the Ranch. Walnut Grove stood not as a real town, but as a carefully built set on a movie ranch near Simi Valley, California. The production used Big Sky Movie Ranch and the surrounding land to create streets, houses, a church, a school, and a general store. The art department chose materials that looked correct, while keeping the structures light enough to move when needed. The goal was to make a place that people would accept as a real prairie town. Carpenters built facades and simple interiors. Some buildings had full rooms behind the exterior, while others were only fronts with no back. Roofs were made to be detachable so crews could place and remove them for camera rigs and for safety work. Wood was painted to look aged, and props such as barrels, lanterns, and crates were added to make shop fronts look busy. The costume department and the prop team worked with set builders to make sure everything on screen matched the time period of the series. The land where the set sat belonged to a private company. The production signed a lease that required the film crew to return the property to its original state when the project ended. That lease clause meant temporary buildings had to be taken down and the ground had to be restored. For many years, producers worked around that rule by keeping the set in use. The clause remained part of the planning for the end of the show. Maintenance of the set took daily work. Painters fixed weathered boards and replaced broken window panes. The art team applied fresh paint to match earlier scenes so continuity would not break between episodes. During heat and rain, the crew had to protect costumes and equipment. The production stored spare furniture and tools nearby so repairs could happen fast. Prop masters kept detailed lists of where every item belonged, so a cup or a book could return to the same shelf for later scenes. Animal handlers and horse wranglers cared for horses and livestock used on camera. Wagons, harnesses, and saddles required regular checks. Stunt coordinators planned moves with horses and wagons in a way that kept actors and animals safe. Road crews kept access clear so trucks could bring in lumber or move set pieces without blocking the surrounding land. People often visited the ranch when filming paused. Production posted signs and managed visitors so that filming would not stop. The presence of fans made Walnut Grove feel like a place people wanted to see in real life. As seasons passed, some buildings needed deeper work. Foundations for certain structures had to be replaced because of wet soil or settling ground. Those replacements increased cost and made producers weigh whether to repair or remove a building. Where foundations were permanent, the art and construction teams kept instructions on how to dismantle items that could not stay. When producers planned the final films, they used those details to decide which facades could move and which parts required full removal. The lease clause and the physical condition of the buildings guided the choices. The result was that some familiar shop fronts were shown being taken down on camera, while the church and the Ingalls house were treated with special care for filming needs. Walnut Grove remained a complex site that required constant work. The set combined creative design with practical plans for weather, animals, and legal rules about the land. The care and the rules impacted how the town looked in the final scenes and how the site was cleared at the end of production. Many crew members kept mementos, but as the cameras captured the town's dismantling, something far more human was happening behind the scenes. If buildings and props could be so carefully handled, what about the people whose lives had been built around them? How did they face the end? The people at the center. Michael Landon carried many titles on Little House on the Prairie. He starred as Charles Ingalls, while he led the show as a producer and a director. He chose scripts, changed scenes, and picked who would direct episodes. His role in production gave him final say on key moments. Cast and crew turned to him when they needed advice. Melissa Gilbert grew up on the show. She played Laura Ingalls from a young child into a teen. Her role grew across seasons. Melissa worked closely with Michael Landon and other actors. She later wrote about her time on set and shared memories of the final filming. Her accounts remain central to how people remember the ending. Karen Grassel played Caroline Ingalls. Her role required long days and close work with child actors. Karen brought care and firmness to family scenes. She later spoke about difficult moments during production and about how the role affected her career. Victor French supported many episodes, and he had a long friendship with Michael Landon that began on earlier shows. Victor offered humor and warmth in scenes. He helped Landon run scenes that mixed actors, horses, and outdoor elements. Victor also directed some episodes and coordinated scenes that needed steady timing. Richard Bull played Nels Oleson, and he gave Walnut Grove a calm, strong voice. He often worked at the Oleson store, and he paired with Allison Arngrim, who played Nellie Oleson. Allison moved from a feisty child into older parts as the series continued. Her lines and presence added a sharp edge to many town scenes. Bonnie Bartlett joined the show as Grace Snyder Edwards, and she represented one of several guest actors who added depth to single stories. She later said Michael Landon cast quickly when he needed a specific role, and he trusted actors to bring truth to short parts. Behind the cameras, a broad team made the show possible. Carpenters and set builders shaped Walnut Grove from wood and canvas. Prop masters tracked every item on a shelf. Costume designers made garments that looked right for the era. The director of photography chose angles to make the town feel real. Script supervisors kept each scene in order so props and lines matched across days. Stunt coordinators planned scenes with wagons, horses, and small effects. Safety teams rehearsed moves so actors could work without harm. The art department painted signs, repaired boards, and kept the town looking lived in. Makeup artists and hairstylists kept faces consistent under bright sun and sudden weather at the ranch. Child tutors worked with Melissa Gilbert and other young actors so schooling continued during long shoots. Production managers organized schedules and budgets so filming ran smoothly. Unit production managers coordinated land access with the ranch owner and handled local hires for extras and animal handlers. After filming, many people kept small tokens from the set. Actors saved scripts, props, or photos. Crew members kept tools and snapshots from long days. Those items became private reminders of long years of work on Walnut Grove. The people at the center of Little House included stars, guest actors, and a large crew who rarely saw public credit. Each person added a skill that shaped how Walnut Grove looked and felt. Their work and their choices in production helped create the scenes that led to the final film and to the end of the town on the ranch. Years later, many of these actors were interviewed. Melissa Gilbert, Karen Grassel, Allison Arngrim, and Richard Bull described the emotions and logistics of the final filming in public conversations later. But what the cast and crew didn't know at the time was that the world they had built with such care was already standing on shaky ground. What could possibly force one of America's most beloved shows to face its final curtain? The cancellation. Television schedules change when ratings shift, and networks review many shows. Little House on the Prairie aired regular episodes from 1974 through 1983. The final regular episode, Hello and Goodbye, aired on March 21st, 1983. As audience numbers dropped compared with earlier seasons, producers and network leaders began formal talks to plan the end of regular production. Those talks set the stage for a controlled closing of the series. Producers examined several routes that would allow the characters to return while ending weekly filming. One route was to end with a single final season and no follow-up projects. The route chosen was to produce a small set of made-for-television films. Those films let the main cast return for scheduled special events and gave writers time to close stories in longer formats. The films that followed regular episodes were Look Back to Yesterday in 1983, The Last Farewell in early 1984, and Bless All the Dear Children later in 1984. This approach reduced the need for long season schedules and allowed the production plan to be careful. Scheduling the television movies required close work with each actor and with production staff. Melissa Gilbert, Karen Grassel, Victor French, Richard Bull, and Alison Arngrim all agreed to return for one or more of the films. Michael Landon wrote and directed parts of the projects, and he guided many story choices. Line producers and unit production managers set short production windows to match actor availability, soundstage bookings, and access to the movie ranch where Walnut Grove stood. The planning also had to respect contracts, insurance needs, and seasonal weather that would affect outdoor shoots. The National Broadcasting Company reviewed budgets and audience patterns before it greenlit the films. The early 1980s introduced new series that aimed at younger viewers, and network leaders sought fresh programming to fill prime time. The made-for-television film option allowed the network to keep familiar characters on air while freeing schedule space for new shows. Producers and network executives agreed that films could meet storytelling goals without the full expense of a season-long production. Those business choices determined how the final projects were written and shot. Once the film plan moved forward, production logistics became a central concern. Stunt teams, safety officers, and special effects coordinators created plans for any staged set changes and for scenes with wagons or horses. The art department cataloged props and photographed interiors so items could be stored, returned to owners, or archived. Construction and props crews decided which facades could be moved intact and which buildings required full dismantling due to permanent foundations. Road and heavy equipment access plans were drawn so trucks could reach the town without harming nearby land or structures. Michael Landon took a central role in managing the final films and in how the town sequence would appear on camera. Interviews and reports from cast members indicate that Landon felt upset about how the series' end was communicated by top network leaders. He expected a direct call from executives about the cancellation, and he did not receive one. Brandon Tartikoff served as head of the entertainment division at the National Broadcasting Company. Landon chose to write a visible on-screen closing that fit production needs and his view of the story. But what Landon decided to do next wasn't just about storytelling. It was about leaving a mark so powerful it would change how fans remembered Walnut Grove forever. Would it end in heartbreak or triumph? The Last Farewell. Little House. The Last Farewell closed the series with a film that showed the town changing in a final sequence. The plot followed the people of Walnut Grove as they faced important moves and choices. Scenes focused on the Ingalls family and on community meetings about the future of the town. The writers used those scenes to explain why certain buildings would be removed or altered as time moved on. The production prepared a controlled removal of sets for the film. Stunt coordinators and safety crews planned each action. The production used small charges and staged collapses where the crew could control the fall of boards and roofs. The camera caught the change in a way that looked dramatic and real, while the actors stood at safe distances. The filmmakers chose to show the fall of certain structures and to keep other structures in view to give the result a clear emotional line for viewers. Which buildings stayed and which were removed mattered to the cast. The church played a special role in many episodes, and production kept the church building in place for key scenes. The Ingalls home was small and personal. The team made choices to preserve parts of that building on camera. The Olesen store and other business fronts were harder to keep because of their foundation work. Production removed them in controlled ways so that the story on screen and the later restoration work could be handled by the crew. Two forces combined to produce the famous demolition scene. The first force was the legal requirement tied to the ranch lease. The lease required the production to return the land to its original condition at the end of filming. That rule meant temporary buildings would have to come down, and crews would need to remove what remained. The second force was the creative decision led by Michael Landon. Reports from cast members and interviews indicate that Michael Landon felt strongly about how the show ended and about the way the network had handled the end of the series. He moved to stage a clear and memorable ending that matched his view of the story. Michael Landon used the legal need as a way to stage a memorable on-screen farewell. He guided the creative choices so the town closure felt like a story event, rather than a quiet removal. The final film thus served two tasks at once. It fulfilled the legal obligation to clear the land, and it gave the cast and the audience a crafted ending, written and directed by Michael Landon. The choice left a clear image in the minds of fans, and it made a final mark on the physical space that had housed Walnut Grove. The cast responded with emotion as the scenes played out. Melissa Gilbert, Karen Grassel, Victor French, and Richard Bull stood with the crew as cameras rolled on the final moments. Cast members later spoke of a heavy feeling on set as buildings came down. Some actors kept small mementos and souvenirs from the town. Fans who watched the film saw both a closing story and a real end to a set that had existed for years in Simi Valley at Big Sky Movie Ranch. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, share with us your comments in the comments section below to keep the discussion going.